Yeah, guys, welcome today once again to today's class. And it's a new week and we have new energy. Hope you had a restful weekend. And for your tasks, I'll start reading your tasks from today after today's class. So even if you have not submitted, you still have ample of time to submit. And if you are yet to submit your previous tasks, you can still go ahead and submit. I would definitely grade them. So let's, as I made mention in the previous class, there was a question that was asked. And said that what is the difference between justify content and align item. So for justify content, once you say you want to justify a content, you are simply doing it on the horizontal axis. So from it being stacked over each other, when you do a display flex, it goes side by side. But when you do a justify content, you're going to use justify content space between, space around. So what's going to do is it's going to justify the content on the horizontal axis, basically. And for the align item, what it's simply going to do is going to align the item on the vertical axis. So peradventure, you have like an element and one is actually taller than each other vertically on the vertical axis. And by the time you do align item center or align item end, it either moves everything to be aligned properly on the vertical axis or brings it to the end, either of the aligned items you are going to be using. That's simply what align item or justify content center does. And I wrote something down in my notes. To center an element, we use align item property to align the item on the crossed axis, which is in this case the block axis, running vertically. Like I made mention of, if you want to use align item, it works on the vertical axis, while we use justify content to align item on the main axis, which is in this case is running on the horizontal axis. So on the horizontal axis, you use the justify content, and on the y-axis and on the vertical axis, you actually use the align item. So do we understand? Did I make sense? Did I make any sense with the explanation I gave, or I should go over it again?
Please,
Sorry, can
go
anyone
again.
hear me?
Yes, sir.
Did you get the explanation I made on justify item and align item? Justify content and align item.
Sir, please, maybe you should go one more time.
So I said that if the difference between justify content and align item is that one, which is justify content, works on the horizontal axis, which is once you have placed your element either with a grid or a flex, you put them side by side, you say justify space between, you give them equal space, justify content space between, you give them equal space on the horizontal axis. If you now say align item, probably there is one that if you use your pesticides on your chrome and you see that, oh, one of them is not properly aligned. Okay, I'll find a way to see if I can integrate it into today's class practically, but I'll find a way around it. But I'm not certain because I don't think the what I'm working on today is going to explain, but I would see to it. So once you are working on the horizontal axis, you use the justify item, and once you are working on the vertical axis, probably you can see that one of your elements is quite taller than each other. You want everything to be on a straight line vertically. You will simply use align item center, and it works very well. So I would see that, okay, I bring in a practical approach into today's class. So let's go into today's class fully. And in today's class, we'll be talking about responsive design. And what is responsive design? As a front-end developer, it is it is your duty and it is your task to simply do what? To build responsive design. And a responsive design is that your design is accessible across all devices, either a laptop, an extremely wide screen, that's a Max laptop, an external screen, a monitor, a tablet, a phone, a small phone, because I would tell you that there are different kinds of small phones basically. And that is that's the bottom line of responsive design. That if I'm on a Samsung, I'm on an iPhone X XR, I can always access your website or your web application same way I am going to be able to access it on same way I'll be able to access it on a system or a laptop or on a computer, and same way I'll be able to access it on a tablet. So let's continue. What is responsive design? Responsive design is designing a website to provide optimal viewing experience across all devices. So I'm going to use my own personal portfolio as an example. This is my personal portfolio website. And with what I've built so far is all right here. And if I send this to a client or someone and they're trying to view it on their mobile phone, once I toggle my screen to, and this extension I'm simply using is called something called mobile simulator. So I have, let me check the device please, can you all still see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. So I'm currently using, let me use a Samsung Galaxy S20, and you can see my website is still visible on the screen and is still accessible by everybody. And if I go to a tablet device, let me use is iPad Pro 11, you can see that it is still accessible on all devices. So based on any device you want to build on, you'd have to make it responsive. So you can't determine the device that your users are simply going to use, are going to view your website. You can't determine that. What you can do on your own is you build across all devices. Either small phone, you can see if I check for iPhone 5, my website is going to look very, very visible, very, very accessible on an iPhone 5, but it's going to be small because of the screen size. And if I look at it on an iPhone 14, you can also, this is just like simulating how the website is going to look like on an actual phone. If you're actually viewing it on your phone, I'll probably drop the link in the chat box. You can actually view it on your phone, and you would see that it is very much accessible. Every information that is up there is readable. One of the things you are looking out for in a responsive design is every text on your screen are readable. They are not squished together. They are not squeezed together. They are accessible. Everything is visible. And one of the major things you change when you are working with responsive design is you change your layout. Probably on a light screen, you are simply using a vertical axis. You're making it side by side. And when it comes down to mobile phone, you reduce it to simply column. So as you can see from my skill section, I have like on a large screen, they were all side by side. Basically, on a large screen, they are simply side by side. But when it came back to a smaller screen, it simply did what? It simply became like I used a flex wrap on it that made it drop in size. Okay, instead of it all being side by side, it's actually going to wrap at every position that there is a break in the screen size. So that, okay, once you get a smaller screen and it sees that there is no space to extend another element by the right hand side, oh, sorry, the left-hand side, it simply does what? It simply breaks to the next line. And that's what I've simply done right here. And that's how it works. That's basically the ingredient for responsive design. And some of the ingredients also include you using pixel, you using absolute relative units, and also you making use of responsive images. So like I've been mentioning in previous classes that some of the things I would explain the measurements in CSS fully well so that you can understand them very well. So I said one of the key principles is con content content adapts to the constraints of every viewing environment, and you don't have to start building, you don't have to start writing multiple code for different screen sizes. You use one single code base for your this thing. You use one single code base for your mobile screen, for your laptop screen, and every other screen you want to access. So why is responsive design, why does responsive design matters? Over 50% of the global web traffic comes from mobile phone. Yes, simply because aside from mobile applications, everybody wants to be able to access websites on their phone. I'll use myself as a case study. I think when I was doing my NYSC, and I was looking, before I went for NYSC rather, that was sometimes in 2023, I was looking for a PPA placement that, okay, I was so focused that, oh, this is what I want to use my whole 1 year to do. I actually want to work in a tech company. At every point in time I go outside, I am on the road and I see a company I have never seen before on either on a billboard, on a car, on a poster. The first thing that comes to my mind is I get the name of the company and I Google search them immediately. And the moment I Google search them immediately, it takes me to what? It takes me directly to their website. And if I can't view that website on a mobile phone, I get so distorted instantly. But I have not been disappointed. Every website I have had to visit, I've always been responsive to mobile phone. And I can tell you, it gives you one kind of conversion approach. Aside your website being beautiful and the likes, one of the major thing that also attracts people to your website is that, okay, I can access your website on the go. I am going in transit, I see something, I want to read a blog post on your website, and I can access it on my phone. Instead of me having to, it's not going to be comfortable. You're in the public transport and you are trying to open your laptop. It's going to look insane. That, are you not security conscious? Even if nothing can basically happen. But the first thing that comes to your mind is, are you not security conscious? How would you be opening your laptop in a bus? I have simply done it before. I had to meet a deadline and I had to write code from my office, which was at VI, all through Tomiland Bridge, like got to the mainland. I had closed from work, but I had to deliver that tax before the following morning. So it was not safe. I don't recommend it. It is not safe. It is not a good practice. But it gets some point in time where you would be choked with deadline. You just have to do the unthinkable. That's simply why I did that. So that was just an exceptional case. But for me to just read articles, stroll through your website, it would be much easier for me to access it on a mobile phone. So expert user streamline, okay, I've explained that. Google use mobile friendly. So it's for your website to be also indexed on Google properly, it also has to be mobile responsive, basically. So for better user experience and leading to high conversion rate, like I made mention in what I was explaining, if I see a post, I see an article, I see something, a company's name, I just go to this thing. I'm not an online, I don't buy things online. But the first point of call, if I want to buy a new thing, if I want to buy something, the first thing I do is I simply go to either Jumia, Konga, or all these online stores, and I try to check for their price range. it is something that leads to, if I am pleased with, I have done it before, I've actually seen something on Jumia and I instantly bought it. So it leads to high conversion rates. If you are probably like, you are running a blog, you are running a newsletter, and people can come to your website, and at that point of they come to your website, they can read content, and it is so clear when they are reading it. They don't have to start rotating their phone to make it look vertical or horizontal. They don't start putting their phone to landscape to be able to read it. So that is one, that's what leads to high conversion rates. More effective than maintaining separate. So if you're actually using a single code base, it's actually much more easier for you to maintain your to maintain your code, instead of trying to, okay, when it gets to a certain screen size, you show this aspect of, and it's your management of the site is actually going to be poor if you have two different separate code base for your application. So also, one thing we'll also be looking at in this responsive design is, I'll be chipping in some little bit of animation. We'll be working with some. I don't have like a specific topic on animation basically, but along the line, in course of the website we'll be building, I'll be chipping in some little animation that we can simply understand. So there are two kind of approach to building responsive web design. First is the mobile first approach. And what is the mobile first approach? The mobile first approach simply means that you're designing for your smallest screen first, then progressively enhance it to a large screen. For example, now, for my portfolio website, I didn't build from a mobile first approach. I simply, because I am using a laptop, and it's much easier for me to first build with a laptop. Then after building with a laptop, I can now simply do what? I can now readjust it to a smaller screen, because I am not building on a phone. So there was a website I recently completed over the weekend. That was still the same approach I used. I simply built for my large screen first, then I started streamlining it down to a mobile device. And I've always told you that as a front-end developer, not every time would you have a UI UX designer that is going to design a mobile screen for you. I'll use my portfolio website, for example. The UI UX designer that designed it for me didn't give me a mobile view. I had to just use either a mobile or a tablet view. I had to just use my own imagination to make it responsive, to make it look the way it looks on mobile screen, basically. And so, what are the benefits of mobile first approach? It helps you focus on essential content and features, improve performance on mobile phone, and ensure compatibility with other browser. And also, when we say compatibility with other browser, so when you are building a website, basically, or a web application, sometimes, like I think I had someone on the call yesterday had a kind of similar issue. He was actually building with Internet Explorer, and I was viewing his submission on Google Chrome. Some of those misalignments happen. Yes, I will use in my workplace, for example, with our products that we're building. It simply does what? It works basically on our laptop, and it has worked on different kinds of on our customers' laptop. But we have this particular customer who makes use of Edge as their browser, and makes it that some things are actually off the site. Like, I have to practically go to the client's place to go and inspect what was seriously happening for why some of the elements that we have on our mobile screen are actually going off when they are supposed to be viewed. It's not even a laptop screen, it's not even a mobile approach screen, it's actually on a laptop screen. But the browser compatibility Internet Explorer, Edge are very old browsers, but they are still in use. I said something that who in 2025 or 2024, 2025 basically, I think it happened this year, who in 2025 uses Internet Explorer or Edge or Mozilla? I know there are people using it, but the percentage of usage is very, very low. Are you guys, am I communicating, guys? Guys, am I communicating?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes.
So let's continue. So, and it also makes it very easy for you to build across. Okay, once you, and I think the reason why I am more convenient with building for my laptop screen first is because that is what I have built with over time. That's simply what I have built with over time. Okay, at every point in time, I build with my laptop screen first, and I start streamlining it down to a mobile phone. So that is for mobile first approach. Then, and I've also explained the desktop first approach. So there are going to be techniques, CSS techniques in using to apply device characteristics, allowing targeted style based on your screen width and height, device orientation, device type, and resolution. And also there are some common kinds of breakpoints in CSS, which is the 320 pixel, which is for smaller phones. There's 480 pixel, which is for medium phones. There are 768 pixel, which is for tablets. There is 920, which is for larger devices such as desktop or larger tablets. And there are also one extremely large device. That is when you are using an external screen or an external monitor and the likes. So that is where you have your, but if you are building for a mobile, a desktop first approach, you don't need to start defining your width, because the moment you are building for your desktop first approach, the approach you are seeing on your screen is simply for your desktop. Then when you're now going down to other devices, you can now start streamlining them to how they will look on those devices. So responsive units and when to use them. So this is where I'm going to talk about the CSS measurement in CSS. So we have responsive units, we have fixed units, and fixed units include pixel. And I will tell you, when you are making use of fixed units in a responsive design, they give you a lot of work. When you're using pixel, that's why you see me over time, even in normal, when we are not even working with responsive design, I simply make use of rem, percentage, em, and those are simply relative units. And let me just read from my notes and explain the difference between measurement in CSS. So measurements in CSS are simply of two types. They are relative and they are absolute. I'm simply going to drop an article. Once I am done with the class, I'm going to drop the article I wrote on it. I'm going to drop it and send it to the group so that you guys can also have it like as a backup point and also a refresher for you, probably after the cohorts and stuff like that. So there are simply two kinds of units in CSS, which is the absolute unit and the relative unit. And what is the absolute unit? Absolute units are based on actual physical units and are generally considered to be the same across all screen sizes. So now, if you are using a pixel, for example, because pixel is one of examples of absolute unit. If you say that something is 30 pixel on your laptop screen, even if you go down to your mobile phone, it's still going to be 30 pixel because it is fixed. It cannot be bent. That is what it means. And it has always been told right from time that to avoid serious issues in responsive, when you're building for responsive, because I can remember basically when I was building some responsive design in the early stage of I'm still pretty early, like in the beginning days of my career, I was using pixel. I use pixel a lot. And when it's now time for me to make it responsive, I become when I say extremely frustrated, because there are some things that I don't want to style, that, okay, with this style I'm giving it, they should just be perfect, even on mobile phone. But with me using Pixel, they simply do what? They are so rigid and they are not easy to use. That is why it is always advisable to avoid them over and over again. So I said pixel is the most common unit, and one pixel in CSS is simply 1/96 of an inches. So these are some, like I said, if I'm explaining it, you might not want, because there's no how I can start showing you writing it in code, because audio calculation is done behind the scene. So all other absolute units are based on this definition of a pixel. But when there's a standard or formula, which is most monitor are 1000, like our monitor screens are 1024 by 76. That is by 76. That means by the length. The width of your laptop is well, there is no best time to use pixel. Basically, there's no best time to use pixel. Probably, I think, since I started using REM, I have literally reduced the way I use pixel, basically, because at some point you would want to target some screen sizes, and it makes it so you now start styling things even to the deepest. So, but if you are using relative units, they can automatically adapt to different kind of screen size without you even having to style them over and over and over again. So, like I was saying, our monitors are 1024 pixel in width, and by height, they are 768. So with doing that, that's how your screen size is. So I'm just reading from my notes. Basically, screens on modern devices have much higher resolution and DPI. So on the line that a 96 pixel goes a long way is not exactly measuring 1 inches, basically, depending on the device. Even those sizes in pixel can vary across device. It is generally better to use pixel for screen if you know the page. If you know the page it will be printed on, and you may consider using other units. So that is why it's very avoidable. If you can see that you have to do some kind of calculation, you have to know, okay, 30 pixel divided by something. I'm not audible enough. Joshua, Daniel, am I audible enough? I am practically in front of my screen.
You are
We can
very,
hear
very
you, sir.
audible. In fact, it's very loud.
Maybe it's his network.
Yeah, can you probably just have to increase your volume, and also I think I am very audible enough. So that is why you have to start doing some kind of calculation. And also on your head, I sometimes, when I am working with some pixel, like I don't have access to, like, what's the name, dev, when I don't have access to like the dev mode, and I have to, like, some pixelated, I just do something. I just come to my Google browser and I say convert, and I go, and I think I have a website, convert pixel to REM. I think I have convert pixel to REM. So with this, I just go to this and it automatically does the calculation for me. So when I say I have 10 pixel or 30 pixel, you can see that 30 pixel, if I'm going to use this 30 pixel on the device, it is simply going to be extremely big, and you will see that in practical. But I'm not going to go through the stress of trying to use pixel, then now convert them to REM. No. So you can now see like a calculation right on your screen right here. You can see that, okay, this is the website I use. You can see that 1 pixel is equal to 0.6 rem. 2 pixel is equal to 0.13 rem. So let me drop this website for you guys in the chat box. You can actually use it as a reference point as you are going for, but I'm still going to drop an article for you guys. So you can see that the more you can see that 100 pixel basically is just 6 rem, and that 6 rem is going to be adaptable to every screen size, basically. Promise, Akman, I have told you guys not to annotate on my screen. Why are you annotating on my screen? Why? Why are you annotating on my screen? Please be careful. So you can see that 8 pixel, they are more like, they are going to be very, very streamlined. And that is for pixel. So there are also there's also other absolute unit, which sometimes you don't use in CSS, basically, which is such as centimeter. You know that 1 centimeter is roughly 37.8 pixel and is about 25.2/64 inches. So I don't know. All the little amount of years I've been writing code, I don't think I've used centimeter before. But there are also examples of absolute units, inches, points, and that's basically all about absolute. But the most one we use when we are writing code is simply pixel. So now coming to relative units. Relative units are relative to another element or setting. For example, a font, the relative font size of an element may be calculated based on the parent container of the element size. So what this simply means is that when you are working with relative units, they are actually relative to their parent container. They are not absolute in the sense that, excuse me, please. They are not absolute in the sense that they are very rigid. If the parent container is 20 rem and you are giving the child container like 5 rem, the 5 rem is still subject to the 20 rem of the parent container. That's the simple definition I just gave, saying relative units are relative to another element or setting. For example, the relative font size of an element may be calculated using the parent element font size. That means every font size you'll be using for relative units, they are still relative to the parent container or to the parent element. Basically, that is what they are. And examples of this thing, examples of parent container simply involves, I said example of parent container. Examples of relative units involve EM, which is basically used for typography, when you want to style your typography and the likes. And let me just write a simple line of code. So let me write a simple line of code so you can understand this better. So we are actually going to work on something, and I've actually done like a simple demo. See, this is what we are going to be building, and we're going to make it responsive. So let's do something. Let's do like, do we have like a container right here? We don't have container, but we have body. So let's just style the body basically. So we have not defined a font family here. We just say body of, let's give it a font size of 16 pixel. I'm going to use pixel here so that you can understand something. And I want to style the h2 container. Let me see some text I have here. They have an h2. Okay, I have an h1. So now come here and now say h1. There are different kind of h1 on the screen. So I have h1, which is of font size. So let's see what our h1 is basically. Let's clear this out and see what our h1 is. So you can see that we just have different kind of size right here. And let's now style our h1. We have we have font size, 1 EM. So what this simply means is that this font size of 1 EM is relative to this 16 pixel that we have used. Basically, every style that will be attaching to this would be subject to the parent container. This container, to this font size that we have up here. So if we give it like 5 rem, it's going to be, or 6 rem, it's actually going to be bigger. And as you can see, it became more bigger. So it is subject to that 16 pixel, basically. So the calculation is simply done that if the font size is 48 pixel, so we have a 16 pixel font size. That's for the parent container. And H2 normally, and the H1 normally is 52 pixel. The size of an H1 element is actually 52 pixel, thereabouts. That's 52 pixel, that is 1. So what we have here, this H1 is 52 pixel. So what we now have here is, we have given this element 16 pixel. So we now want this, our H1, to be relative of this. So what you are simply going to have is 16 times 6. That's what, who can tell what 16 times 6 is? That's going to be like 16 times 6. Nobody wants to help out. Nobody wants to help out. Nobody wants to help out.
96.
That's what? Who said? I said, someone said something, but I didn't hear. Is it 96 you said?
96, 96, 96.
Yeah, all right. So that was going to
96.
be the H1. This H1 is simply going to be 96 pixel. 96 pixel. That's simply what we have. So if we do this, let's go back to our calculator here, and we have 16 pixel. That's 16 pixel, it is 1. So 16 times 6, that is 96 pixel. So everything we have, so if we are now going to check this out on a pixel base, so let's minimize our, let me open my Google Developer tool and minimize this and see. I'm sure it's not going to give me in pixel, it's simply going to give me in, rem. So it's actually going to give me in rem. I'm supposed to convert this to, let's give it 96 rem, and you will see that it's also going to 96 pixel, and it's also going to be of the same size, basically. So 96 pixel is also equals to 6 EM. That's like the calculation of how EM is done. So for rem is more like relative units not affected by the size or settings of the parent container. It is instead based on the root of the document. So for example, for rem, it is not, it's actually affected by, let's say, the root element, the root size that you have set on that element, basically. That is what is going to affect. So if you have like your paragraph tag should be like 16 pixel, or your paragraph tag should be like 20 pixel, that's going to be like 16 times 1.2 rem. So those are some calculations. Like, the calculations are always boring. That's why I don't do the calculation most of the time. I just use, like I said, I like to do things the easy way. But I'm going to send the article to you guys, and you'll be able to read up and understand it better. So I'm just going to run through some of the elements of some other relative units that we have. Some other relative units that we have simply involve percentage. They are also view width, view height, and yeah, that's basically all. And you also have viewport width and viewport height. So that's basically some of the things we have using responsive relative units, basically. And I will tell you, don't bore yourself with the calculation. Sometimes the calculation is insignificant, basically. but it gets to some point, they might not have not had an interview where they interviewed me or asked someone that what is 16 pixel in RAM. Those are something that a UI UX designer would be battling, not you, because all those calculations, your UI UX designer would have brought it up for you, and you are just going to be implementing basically. So are we clear? Do we understand relative and absolute unit? I know it might look somehow vague, but when I send the article to you guys that I wrote, you guys will understand it better. Are we good?
Yes, sir.
All right. So
Yes, sir.
let's now start. Let's now go into the practical session, basically, and we'll be expanding our scope on this project. It's more like I made mention of it. We would have a slight animation in between. Oh, Control Y. So let me just do my Control Y back, Control Z, and show you the total outcome, basically. So I've actually written the code before now. So this is like the outcome of what we are going to have. We are going to have a fully responsive website, a little bit of animation here and there. And if I put it to a mobile screen, it is also simply responsive, basically. So as you can see, but we can't toggle our mobile navigation simply because that alone has to have like a JavaScript embedded in it. So for you to perform some kind of click function on your project or your website, you need to have JavaScript written. So for the navigation, when we get into JavaScript, we will see more of that. So let's continue. So I'm just going to uncomment it out again and we'll start writing the code from scratch, basically. So let me just do a Control Z and Control Y, and we are off and we are set to go. So as you can see, I've written the code before, so I just have to just write some things and I would explain anyone that you know that you might not understand. But some of the things I'm going to be writing here, we have done it over and over again, and you wouldn't have to be thinking through it so much. So I know you all understand the root element. It's simply me just defining colors that I want on my website, and I can easily change them. And so for the body element, I have I simply have a font family. I'm using Intel, I'm using Apple system, and I'm using sans serif. And I also have a background color. As you can see now, I am using two different kinds of colors for my background color, basically. I am simply using linear gradients. So the linear gradient makes it look as though that I'm blending two colors on the background of my website. That's simply what I'm using the linear gradient for, basically. And you would see it, you would come across it when you're building websites, basically. And when you're doing that, you would have something like, probably you have an image in your background and you want to put like an overlay on it. With the overlay you have on it, you probably put like a black overlay on it, and yeah, something like that. That's where you use your linear gradients, basically. So let's continue. And for our animation, let me start with the animation. So I have a class for animation right here. I just created an empty class for an animation right here, and I'm going to be styling that right now. So we have .bg-animation. So let me extend my screen fully and close this up. So let me divide my screen. So I have BG animation. So this is just more like a simple animation that we would be doing. And sometimes you don't have to write your animation, because there are now packages that simplify animations for you. There are animation packages such as Framer Motion. If you can you can see my portfolio. You can see Framer Motion there. Framer Motion is more like an animation tool. There's also an animation tool called G-Sharp, which you can also use. But just to run animation, right, building simple animation using CSS is, building simple animation, you can actually use CSS for that. So I'm going to have position equals fixed. So the position of this is actually going to be fixed. And the next thing I'm going to have like it. I don't think we have used position in class basically, but this is an example for us to actually explore positioning. Position top, we have left of 0, and we would have a width of 100%. So I'm actually using a relative unit right here, relative unit of 100%, and also I'm going to have an height of 100%, height of 100%. So even when I get to a smaller screen, it's still going to automatically fit what we have, basically. So, and the next thing I would have is a z-index of -1. So my z-index, I'm giving it a z-index of -1. I don't want it to pop up to the front. I want it to be behind my element. As you can see that I just defined a div for it. I don't have a content inside of it. I'm simply giving it a content from my from my CSS. That's basically what I'm doing. So let's continue. I'm going to have PG animation, and I'm going to have the before class. So this is another these are some things you do. So I don't know how to explain this, but this is you streamlining how you want your elements to look like. And I don't think I've used this in a long time. I've not used this in a long time, basically, simply because all the animation I have done, I simply use frameworks. I simply use tools to simply achieve my animation instead of me going through the long route of doing that. But if you want to make use of those animations, you have to actively engage JavaScript into it, basically. So I have content. So you can see that because I've written the code before, I am having like some kind of helper tools, and simply because I'm using some AI agents on my Visual Studio Code, that's why you can see it's giving me suggestions of what I want to write. But I am not going to do that. I am going to be writing out the code instead of me copying, instead of me just allowing AI automatically complete it for me. So I have position of absolute, and I have top 0, left of 0. I have a width of 100% also. I give it a width of 100%. I give it a height of 100%, height of 100%. And also, I now have a background color, and I have a background of, sorry, not background color, I have a background of radical radiant. So this is another way of styling in CSS. So you just have to, it's just like animation, basically. So I have circle at 20%, 50%, and RGBA 120, 199, 1991, 9,198, and 0.3. So what RGBA simply means is that red, green, and black with Joshua, you don't have to worry yourself about what I'm writing. Just understand that this is another way of I'm just trying to animate what we have behind our screen, or when I showed you earlier. So you don't have to just have this as an head knowledge. This is more like an advanced. If they don't teach animation, I don't teach animation in beginner class. Animation actually comes in advanced CSS classes, basically. But I just have to impute this so that so you have idea of it. So when you see it in the nearest future, you won't be amazed at what is going on here, basically. So that's what I'm simply just doing right here. So I have 0% transparent, 0% transparent, 0%, and I have a comma, transparent of 50%. So that is one. The other one is going to be radical gradients of circle at 80%, 20%. This is basically not what but I just want to keep this in. So what the before simply does is it defines the element before the next element. So now you can see that we don't have any content inside this place. Inside the BG animation, we don't have a content inside, but we want to define it before our header session, before our hero session. That's actually where the position is going to be, basically. So that is why we do the before. And if we want it to be after, we use the after keyword. You can also read up on that, basically. So we have 20% of RGBA 22255 119, 119, 0.3, and we have 0% transparent, 50%, and then we have another one. So this sometimes is always boring when you're kind of working with it. Basically, it's always boring. So we have radical gradient, which is circle at 40%, 80%, 120, 219, 255, 0.3, and we have 0% transparent of 50%. So, and I think we are done with this. And we now have what is simply going to make it spin, basically. So we have animate, we have float of how many seconds? 20 seconds. Then we have ease in, ease dash in dash out, and infinite. So it's not going to stop. So let's see what we have. It's not working yet because we have to add a keyframe to it. So we have done this. So the next one is we have to add a keyframe, and we have float. The identifier is going to be the animation object you wrote down here, which is going to be float. And I have 0%, 100%. There has to be a comma. 0%, 100%. Which you have transform translate at y-axis of 0 pixel, then rotate at animation is, when you understand animation is kind of sweet, but when you're working with it, it can be extremely boring, I can tell you. So we have rotate 0 degree, Then the next one is the next one is 50%, and we have transform, translate, y. Then we have minus 20 pixel, and we have rotate. We have rotate 180 degree, rotate 180 degree. So let's save and see. This should ask, why is this not working? This should actually pop up our elements. Should actually pop it up. I'm coming, let me check through this. It actually pop it up practically instantly. So I'm trying to see what's going on here. I'm trying to see what's going on here. Content absolute 100% fixed. Am I missing the spelling? I don't think so.
So the content, is it not supposed to have a value?
No, it's not supposed, it has to be empty. It's not, it does not have a value, it has to be empty. It has to be empty. It has to be empty. I don't want us to dwell much on this. Let's just continue. But we still have a long way to go.
Hello, sir.
I don't know why that is not working. I don't know why that is not working.
Yeah, hello, sir.
Yeah.
I think at the keyframe, I think we need to target the name of the animation as the class.
Yeah, that's why I targeted float. That's the identifier for the animation. The identifier for the animation is simply float. That's the identifier. That's what it targets. That's what it targets. No, I don't need it to and from. Animation like this. I've written this code too, and I don't know why it's now falling my hand in class. But it happens. That's what makes me a developer. That's what makes us developer. You have written your code and it's working, but you can't just figure out where the error is coming from. You can't figure out where the error is coming from. Lord. I don't know. I've written my line of code and it's perfect. I've written my line of code and it's perfect. So I don't know why. I don't know. But let's continue. Let's continue. We'll get to the root of this. No, and that's how it should be. That's simply how it should be. Joshua, but I'm actually practicalizing for you guys. I can't just bring a code to the class and start explaining. Yeah, that is one thing. That's one principle we always work by. That first, if it works, once it works, don't touch it again. But sometimes you just have to optimize. Basically. So optimization, sometimes you just have to do it so many times before you get the perfect results. So, but at this point, we don't need to add display. We actually adding it from behind the scene, basically. So but we'll definitely get, I know before the end of this class, before we finish the whole responsive class, everything is going to fall in line, basically. So let's start styling other sections. So we have the position of fixed, because this is actually going to work on responsiveness. So when we get to our mobile screen, it has to be responsive. It has to stay at one particular position fixed. We have a top of 0. We have a width of 100, a width of 100%. And the next thing, we have a background color, a background of RGBA, which is, you can see, red, green, blue, alpha. That's simply what it means. So I have 15, 23, no, sorry, 15. My green is 23, My blue is 42. 42, and my alpha is 0.9. 0.9. So, and I have a backdrop filter. So these are some styles that I just added. Backdrop filter of blur of that's 10 pixel, and I have border bottom, border dash bottom, border bottom of 1 pixel solid bottom of 1 pixel solid, 1 pixel solid VAR. So who knows where this VAR is coming from? Who knows where this VAR is coming from?
The variable you created.
Yeah, so that's where it's coming from. Yeah, so you guys are following. So var, and I have glass border. And the next thing we would have is I have a z-index of 1000, simply because I want this to pop up. So every other thing is actually going to go behind it. So when we are scrolling through, everything just go behind it. That's why I have a z-index. So with my position of fixed, I want it to occupy a fixed position 1. And I also wanted that, okay, once I am scrolling, don't hide. Just be where you are, and every other thing is actually going to go behind the navigation. So I have a transition of all and 0.3 seconds of ease. So let's save and see if our navigation, why is our navigation not working? Sorry, what's going on here? What's going on? Why is our code not working? Okay, I know why. I'm actually using header, not a class of header. Another wrong move. So as you can see, everything will be working. When we are scrolling, it goes behind the navigation, basically. So that is working. So let's continue. So let's file our nav itself. Nav. So I'm actually using just semantic tags right here. So I have display flex. I have justify content space between. So this is where justify content space between comes in. So now, as you can see, let me now explain what I was saying at the beginning of the class. So with display flex, everything comes side by side. By the time I now say justify content space between, it gives it equal space from the left axis to the right axis. So it makes it horizontal. And when you're now saying align item center, so which I'm also going to use, so I have justify content space between, and I save this. You can simply see it brought the space to the left and right, as you can see. When I now use align item center, what it simply does is it brings the logo. You can see that the logo was somewhat at the top before. This nexus was a logo at the top before. When I did align item center, it brought everything to be vertically aligned properly. Do you now understand the practical scenario of justify content between and align item? Do we understand?
Yes, sir.
We understand,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. All right, so let's continue. Let me continue styling our navigation. Right here. So we have align item center. I also have the padding padding of 1 rem, and also 2 rem. So the next thing, I'm defining a width because this is on a large screen device. I have 120 pixel, 1200 pixel, and imagine of 0 and auto. So once I save this, yeah, and let's now go into our logo. Let's now start our logo itself. Just logo. So you can see our logo has like when I showed you, our logo had like a multicolor schema in between. So this is how it's go done. Font size, we're going to give it 1.5 rem. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Who spotted out that error? Yeah, thank you very much, Daniel and Godfrey. Thank you so much. So let's continue. So we have a font size of 1. So you can see margin auto, it made everything, it gave it a space at the top and bottom. So let's continue. We have font weight of 700. Font weight of 700. We have a background color, a background of linear gradient. So this is another way of adding colors to your elements. Linear gradient of 135 degree, comma VAR. VAR of dash primary, dash primary, comma VAR dash secondary. So the S is still there. Oh, sorry. I think I was about to save and I just added the S back there again. So VAR color secondary, and so now I want to add another style, which is to clip. So if I save this, Control S, you can see that you have it like a background color, but you want to actually make your text in itself have the color. Like, okay, the text is the one that has the color, basically. So there is now like a web what I call it, web I can't a web kit that is used to do that, basically. Web kit. So we have dash web kit dash background clip and text. So with this, what it's simply going to do is actually going to clip our background color to our text, basically. You can see it's actually going to clip it, but it's not yet done. So let's continue. We would have the web kit dash text dash fill color. That's going to be transparent. And we have background clip of text. So let's save and see. As you can see, with the simple web kit, you actually transform the background color to making it look as though you are using an actual image which has like a color schema in between, not knowing that it is a text that we actually transformed from our CSS to make it look that way. Do we understand what I did with the web kit and the clipping, the background clip? So these are some things I might not necessarily have in my notes, but as I come up with different kind of practical sessions in class, I'm just going to be chipping it in. So do we understand, or you want me to go over it again?
Yes, sir,
Hello,
go
can
over
anyone
it.
hear me?
Sir, please go over again.
Okay. So
Go
what I
back
simply
one point.
what I simply did here was that what I simply did here was that I want to transform our, I want to add like the color to our logo. And I don't want to do it from, like, as you can see that our color has two different colors in particular. It has like a purple and a pink background sort of. And when I added our background of linear gradients of this, when I added the background color, what it simply did was it applied to it as like the background color, basically. That's what is going to happen. But I don't want it to be that. I simply did like a property in CSS called, you can clip your colors to your text, basically. So with the WebKit background clip, what you're simply doing is you're clipping your background color to your text, and you are making the text transparent. That's simply what I did here. I added a background color of clip and text. So what I now did was, okay, I've added the text, I've actually clipped the background color to the text. So now make it transparent. Then you now the background clip of the text is now going to show on it. It's like you adding like how will I explain? You having more of a text and you adding like a picture to it. When you're let me use customization basically. When you are trying to customize your name to the back of your shirt and you want to try to use paint, you want to use paint on it, you would first write out your name, then you put it on a mesh. When you now put it on a mesh, you now set it directly on your clothes where you want to have it. Then you now use your color to scrape out your name. Like the moment you place the color on your mesh and you are, I don't know, I've actually had opportunity to work, to see, not to work, to see people work in the printing press, the people who does all this customization and the likes. Basically, I've actually had opportunity. So that's why I'm actually using that scenario. So by the time you are laying the colors on those alphabets one after the other, you are no longer seeing the transparent color you had. You are now seeing like the particular color that you are given. That's simply what I have done here. I am not making a text, instead of having the background color, just having it at the back and the text should be white. No, I want the text to actually take over that color, and it has like a transparent color. It has like a text feel of color transparent. So instead of having it as a white color, so let's comment this out. Instead of having it as a white color, you can see that I did a WebKit background clip of text, and I did this. It has not first, it's still white basically. But the moment I did a web text fill color of transparent, what it simply does was it overrides the white that we had right there, and the color became purple and pink. So it actually spread. Like, okay, you don't know where one is starting and one is ending. You can see that, okay, from the beginning point, they have purple, to the end is sort of pink. That's simply, so do you understand? This was not my lecture today, basically, but I have brought it in. So I'm going to run very fast now. So do we understand?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's continue. So let me also just comment this out. This is just like sharing out what we have right there. And so we have the nav links. So let's now start our nav links. That's nav dash links. So this should not actually be like, you just have display flex. Display flex. We have line item, list style of none. You should be familiar with this. And we have a gap of 2 rem, a gap of 2 rem, and let's see this. Well, Akpan, sometime I think so. Yeah, basically, I've not explored other options. Basically, I've not explored. There might be other options, but I think the WebKit basically work and it's constant. And it's constant because it works across all browsers, both old browsers and current browsers. That's basically what it does. I think it is basically constant because it actually works both on Firefox, both on Mozilla, both on Brave. And if you are just using the normal way of doing it, I think there's a normal way of doing it, which I can remember off my head now, it won't basically work. That's why we have to use the WebKit. So, George, your hand is raised.
Okay, sir. I wanted to ask that background, if it was the color of the text that I put that linear gradient, will it work?
Okay, you want to do something like this, text, and you do this, and you just copy your linear gradient like this. And you paste it right here. It's not text, it should be color. So let's actually comment this out. I think this should work. It's not working because your color does not understand linear gradients, basically. Colors does not understand linear gradients, basically. So that's it. It's not going to work. So you have to use the WebKit right there before it could work. Do you understand, George?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. Are there two people attending the class over there, George? Because I can hear someone else speaking in the background. The family man in our class. Yeah, so that's on the lighter mood. So let's continue. So we have the .nav links. So right here, I'm just going to be spinning off. We kind of understand whatsoever I'm doing here. There's nothing new I'm actually doing here. We have color of VAR. That's going to be dash text. We have text decoration none. We have transition of color of 0.3 seconds and ease. And we have position of relative. Let's save this and see. Yes, we just change the color from what we have previously. So we go to the next one. So we have nav links, and we have the after. We have the after. So what happens afterward? So we have content. Content is always empty. We have position. We have position of absolute. So this is also for the responsiveness. So the absolute, we have bottom of -5 pixel. We have left of 0 pixel of 0. We have width of 0. We have height of 2 pixel. We have a background color. I have a background. I don't know what I'm using. Yeah, I can also use background color on linear gradient of 135 degree, comma VAR dash primary, and we also have secondary, comma VR secondary. And yes, I think we are done with this, and we're just going to have like a transition. We're going to have like a transition. So my transition is more the same. So I just copy this transition up right here. Takes me some microseconds. I paste this right down here. So that should work. So more of, let's continue. So we now have our over effect dot nav links a over after. So like once you over on it, so we have a width of 100%. So let's continue. I'm just going to speed up right here. So we have dot nav a over color var dash primary. So let's check that. So once I over on it, it gives us this sweet color. So let's continue. Let's continue, and we have for our menu toggle dot menu toggle dash toggle. We have a display none. So that's on a large screen. We have a display none. So it does not show on a large screen. I think we have it here. This is our menu toggle. We have it right there. We have a display none. We have a flex direction of column. Flex direction of column. We also have a cursor pointer. So people would know that you can actually click on that. So we have dot menu dash toggle span, which is going to be width of 25 pixel. So these are something that we are not going to change across. So we just have height. So things that you might not change across board, that they are just going to be static somewhat. You can actually use your pixel for that. We have background. We have background of white. Let's just have var dash text. We also have a margin of 3 pixel 0. So we have transition of 0.3. Yeah, and I think we are done with our navigation. Yeah, we are simply done with our navigation sort of. So let me add something. Let me just show, let me remove this display of hidden so you can see what we have. So simply what we have is a navigation, like a hamburger menu, that once you go on a mobile screen, every other thing is hidden. It's just only that is going to be shown. So let's continue. Yeah, so let's just, I think before the next class, if we can't finish the CSS in this class, before the next class, I'll have written up all your CSS and we'll just work on the responsive, because it's taking quite a lot of time. And I don't want us to have like an on, we shouldn't finish this, because I know I'm still owing you guys the grid working with CSS grid, a practical session. I know I'm still owing you guys that. I know I'm still owing you. Just have to forgive me. So let's target the hero session. Let's start the hero session. The hero. So we have mean height of 100 VH. So regardless of every screen we fall on, is actually going to occupy 100 view height. That means the total screen, like the amount of height you can see on your screen, that is simply what is going to occupy. We have display of flex, display flex. We have flex align item center, justify content center. Justify content center, text align center. Then we have a padding of 2 rem. 2 rem. We also have a position. I'm using position most of the time right here. I'm using position very well in this. You're having a problem understanding the pre-pseudo elements. Okay, promise. As you can see, let me remove this pre-pseudo element for the after. For this right here. If you can check what we have, you can see that what the pre-pseudo element is actually doing is that it is giving it a different kind of style, basically. Let me comment it out and save again. You would see that when you hover on it, it gives you an underline, which is not from your CSS. Can you see that, promise?
Yes, yes, I can see that.
So that is like you adding additional styles from your CSS on your elements. That's why you use the before and after. If we simply use the before, I think it's going to come above it before. So let's save. It's actually supposed to come after it. So because it's not the way we defined it. Let me remove this. I have to start styling this all over again to see that it works. So it's more of the positioning you are going to give to it. So this is just like, I don't have any design I was working with. I was just brainstorming and I came across this. So that's what we have. You can promise. I don't want to dive into this, but you can actually just read up on it, and I would make mention of it more in the next class, basically. I'll make mention of it more. I just wanted to just breeze through it because I know using the before and after pseudo class goes a long way. That there's a lot of techniques and explanation that goes into it, basically. So you can read before the next class, you can read up on it, and I will explain more in the next class. Yeah, so let's continue. I think let's save. And where were we? We are the hero section. So we are done with the hero section. Let's now start the content which is inside. So we have .hero content, .hero dash content. We have a max width. We have a max width of 800 pixels. So regardless of the screen size, is also going to occupy 800 pixels. We have a z index of 2. So it has to be above. Then the next one that we have is going to be the h1. Hero session h1. H1 would have a font size. Of 2 rem. So let's see. I have a font size of 2 rem. Let's make it 4 rem. Let's make it 3 rem. Let's make it 3 rem. So let's continue. So we have like a font width 700. We have a margin bottom of 7 rem. 7 rem. We have a background color, a background with linear gradient. So I'm using linear gradient a lot. Linear gradient of 135 degrees, comma VAR. I use bar VAR of dash primary var of text comma no not inside var of text and var of accent so let's see what we have. So we are now going to clip the same way we clipped in the first section. So I'm just going to go back up there and just copy it. So where do we have that? That's on our navigation. I'm just going to copy this. I'm just going to copy this and paste it right here. So let's see and see what we have. So this is simply what we have. And yeah, and I think we are done with that. Or I'm just going to add like initial animation to it. So once you are scrolling in, you would see it animation of fade in, up, fading up 1 second is dash out. So let's save that. So when you're scrolling in and out, it's going to fade in and out. So that's what depth is going to do. So I think I'm going to check the animation settings. Probably I'm not writing something probably well. So that's why it's not working. Hero T. So we have a font width. You have a font size of 1.2 rem. We have a color of var dash text mounted. We have a margin bottom of 2 rem. A margin bottom of 2 rem. Which line are you seeing? Godfrey, which line are you seeing?
And the hero section, I can see it's not transparent like as if both the height and the width, or it's just a shadow that is on it.
Where is that?
The hero, the nav bar.
Is it a kind of white line?
Yes, sir.
Let me check the style. I think I gave it a navigation. So there is, I didn't give it a line actually. There's no line there. There's simply no line. It's more like, you know, my major background is like a dividing point. I didn't give it a line. It's just like a dividing point within my hero section and and the navigation. As you can see, there is no line basically. There is no line there. Yeah, so let's continue. So we have our p text and we have done that. So let's continue. Oh, I gave it a border solid. Let me check. I can't even read through my code. Like my eyes are glooming, so I can't read through my code properly. Oh yeah, you can see I gave our header section border bottom of 1 pixel, as you can see. Online 60, online 64. I'm not seeing my code properly. It's border bottom. I can't see I'm trying to just read through my code. So let me just tell you. It happens sometimes. You might not see some things in your code. I have implemented it. I am human. I don't know everything off of my head at that particular point. And thank you guys for bringing it to my notice. I would have thought I didn't write something like that. So let me comment this out and be sure it is it. Oh, it's actually the border bottom I gave it. So thank you very much, guys, for bringing that to my notice. Thank you very much for bringing it to my notice. There are some things I'm seeing in this code. I'm trying to know where to place them because I'm writing the code off my head. I'm simply writing this code off my head. So sometimes it can be hard trying to track some things. So the next thing I would be styling. Let me also add an animation right here. Animation of feed. Let me just copy this animation. So I think I'm done with the hero section of the P tag. So the next one I'm now going to go to is the button.cta button. That's the CTA button. So we have display flex. I have justify content, gap of 1 rem. I have justify content center. I have align item center. And I have flex wrap. So on a small screen, if there is no space, it's just going to wrap. So let's save and see what we have. So yeah. So let's continue. We have our flex wrap already. And that's for our CTA button. So let's now start the BTN, the buttons themselves. The button. And I think this is where we'll be drawing the cutting of padding. 1 rem, 2 rem, 1 rem, 2 rem. Would have a border of none. We are going to have a border radius of 50 pixels. We are going to have a font size of 1 rem. We are going to have a font weight of 600. We are going to have a cursor of pointer. We are also going to have a text decoration of none because of the underline that is there of none. And we'll have, let's save and see what we have. Okay, so this is already coming alive. Let's continue. So I think that's the style I'm giving that. So let's do for the button primary.btn primary dash primary. BTN primary, that's background color, background of linear gradients of 135 degree, comma VAR dash primary VAR dash secondary. So, and we have the color of text, color of VAR dash text. So let's save and see what we have. As you can see, this is simply what we have. And yes, I would finish up the second button. I'll finish up the second button and we will continue from there. But in the next class, I would have finished up every other session and we'll just be focusing more on responsive design alone so we can run fast. I think when I was writing this code, it gave me, I think I had roughly 1,000 plus lines of code, thereabouts. I can't remember the figure off my head, but gave me 1,000 lines of code roughly. And yes, it's actually difficult. It's actually taxing trying to explain and writing the code one after the other. So, and sometimes the tasks are more. Your lines of code might be more than that. So guys, thank you very much. Before the next class, I'll have completed the design. We'll just focus more on the responsiveness in itself. So thank you very much, guys, and see you in the next class. And do have a lovely week ahead. Bye.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you,
joining.
sir.